Morning, everyone, and really glad to be here. It was good to hear Dr. Ando earlier and what's going on in Department of Defense. But let's shift gears and actually see what we do commercially as well. I really appreciate the opportunity here to talk about what we have done at Boost Mobile from OpenRAN standpoint, because still there are misconceptions about that OpenRAN is still in the labs. We want to make sure that everybody understands it's real. It's out there. We actually have commercial traffic on it, and we have covered 80% of the U.S. Population as of right now, and it continues to grow on every single day basis. So I will take about 30 minutes or so to go through the content in terms of what Boost Mobile journey was in terms of adopting OpenRAN. If you take a look at adopting OpenRAN for 5G across the globe, we were the Mavericks. We're the first one to do it. Nobody else actually had done it. So we want to make sure that the learnings that we actually had, we share that with the broader community. We're really committed to it. And we want to make sure that, and as I end my presentation, I'll talk a little bit about ORCID as well in terms of how we want to promote OpenRAN globally and primarily in the US as well. So with that being said, so when we started our journey for OpenRAN, or started to build the network, we actually looked at three principles that we wanted to adopt as we build 5G network for us, or build the wireless network for us. One was we want to make sure that it's OpenRAN, and I will not get into why OpenRAN, but we saw early on, and this decision was made about 4 years back, right, when OpenRAN was still in its infancy. There were a few operators who actually had tried it. It was a lot of investment that people had done in the lab, but nobody actually had done it commercially for 5G. Second was our commitment towards cloud native. We want to make sure that we adopt the latest and the greatest technologies. And in terms of time to roll out as well, cloud native infrastructure or the architecture itself has a huge influence on that front. And lastly, we want to make sure we start off with a clean base and actually have a network which is 5G only. So these are the three principles that drove in terms of what you see of Boost Mobile Network as of right now. So again, because we didn't have a legacy, we don't had, we're not 100-year-old company. In terms of wireless, we actually had a luxury to start with the latest and the greatest. So we adopted everything that we saw are the key drivers for innovation. We adopted that. However, I would say that the journey was not easy. I mean, we started, when I started this in 2 years back at Boost Mobile, I started out with launching the first market, and I can tell you the first launch of our market was very, very challenging. As you could expect, when you're launching the new network or any new technology. However, it was more challenging because the ecosystem was not there. We actually had to build the complete ecosystem, the best practices around it. So with that, I will go into a little bit about OpenRAN itself and what we had to do and really address as part of the OpenRAN. So if you take a look, I mean, you actually, from looks and feels, you can't tell the difference from a traditional telco setup versus an OpenRAN setup. So that's one misconception I want to make sure that people understand. When you look at the towers, it looks exactly the same. However, if you go into it and you go dive a little bit deep into it, you would see that OpenRAN brings cost efficiency, and I will show you how. Where if you take a look, we have an antenna up there. But what the first thing we did is we took the radio units, and rather than actually have it to be along with the baseband units, we put that right up with the antenna itself. What that gives us is that less, RF cable. Again, you actually have less, less path loss, and also you actually have, stealing is one of the issues. If you understand what I mean, like you actually have theft that you need to address, not only in the US, but across the globe as well. So because it's pure copper, right? And the third thing as well is power consumption. You optimize on that front as well. And then lastly, what we have done is we adopted both distributed RAN ecosystem and also the centralized RAN ecosystem as well. And if you take a look at the first box that's right next to the tower, that represents a distributed RAN. And this simplifies as to what we put into the base of the tower. You simply have a CSR, a cell-side router, and a distributed unit. That's about it. All the control functions are put in the cloud. This is where, again, we adopted OpenRAN and we adopted cloud. So if you take a look, all the functions that we actually have from the control unit were actually put into the cloud itself, into our border edge data centers. This local data center that you actually have, this is where we adopted technology of centralized RAN. This is where we were able to pool the resources for the distributed unit in one location. Of course, we had to meet the latency requirement for the front haul. Based on that, we adopted that. And again, if you take a look at the dense areas, I mean, even where we are right now, or things like places like New York City, again, dense urban areas, this use case makes a lot of sense. It supports both cost effectiveness and also resiliencies, because you can pool the resources. Now, on the outskirts, I mean, like as I said, it looks pretty much as the same way as it looks for the traditional telcos, but the key difference is as you go deeper into it. If I have to talk about what all goes into the distributed, into the OpenRAN setup, of course, you actually have the radio units. And what we did was, since we were adopting the latest technologies, the radio units that we had, it was not that one spectrum, one radio. We actually adopted where we had multiple spectrum within the RU as well. So that's one of the benefits from the OpenRAN. Of course, traditional OEMs have adopted this as well, and they're supporting us. But with OpenRAN, we were able to do that, which simply meant we reduced the number of RUs, the radio units we require per site as well, because each telco would have multiple frequencies that they will be supporting. I mean, certainly as we do, there are others who are supporting multiples as well. Then when you get into the RAN applications, one thing that I was telling, and when I talk to everybody who says that they want to go into OpenRAN or they want to really see what, if the MNOs are really working towards OpenRAN, I simply tell them go out and actually open their base units and actually see what labels they have in that, in that cabinet. If you see multiple labels, you can really see that they're taking benefit from the OpenRAN. That's what we did. We have adopted where we have multiple RAN applications in our network. We have multiple RU providers, the radio unit providers in our network as well. The complexity is also there from the chipsets and the network card that's there, because it's off-the-shelf hardware. You have to make sure that it actually works with the RAN application and the radio units, and it supports the processing that you need to support RAN applications and supports the resiliency, right? And then the aspect of networking, that's really a key. Aspect of timing, that's a key as well, and how we integrate that into the cell-side router. And then to top it off, we wanted to make sure that it's all cloud native. So this is the complexity that we actually had, and there was nobody who actually has done this. And our complexity was, we started off thinking, yes, we know all of this. Let's go and actually start rolling out our network. So one was to test it in the lab. Everything worked well. We take it and we start our commercial rollout. And we had FCC obligation to support, to have 20% of our network rolled out by June 14 of 2022. I still remember that because I had a lot of sleepless nights. And when we did this, we simply told all the providers of the applications that you see, or the elements that you see on the left-hand side, and told them to work together and let's go and actually make this network work. I can tell you it was a nightmare where people were not talking. People actually were looking at that this is proprietary to us. We don't want to share information with the individual who they need to hand it over to. So, for example, because we have multiple RAN providers, they were not collaborating with each other. The cloud solutions we had, you are virtualizing on the edge, but you're also doing containerizing it into the cloud as well. But there is a handover that actually has to happen. That was not happening properly. So rolling 20% was quite challenging. And we all decided as a team that this is not the way for us to go and actually do it. That's where we decided that we have to assume the role of NSI. However, what we were able to do based on, and I will talk about how we assumed the role of SI, but based on that learning, we worked and developed an automation. And again, we're not a software company by any means. We adopted off-the-shelf, and we created our workflows on top of off-the-shelf software that's available. But we orchestrated. And again, the toughest problem was not technology, it was people. So we had to address that people aspect as well. So I will talk more about that in my last slide as well. Okay. Before I do get into the opportunities that I want to focus on, I want to highlight that as of today, when we started this 20% journey and then moved to covering now 80% as of now, we have matured the OpenRAN automation to the point where we don't send a field engineer to the site to do the installation and integration. But by the time a physical installation is done, site is powered on, fiber is connected, our automation kicks in. We do everything from loading the firmware to the operating system to the platform, then the RAN application, then the RAN configuration, and from there, configuring the RUs, the antennas, even doing the remote tilt and doing the first call verification, we do all of that remotely. That's the level of automation we have gotten to. Today we stand at where at the peak of our deployment, we rolled out 9,000 sites in 90 days. This is the first time that anybody could actually have done that. And now this is something, by the way, there are others across the globe who have done this, but they did it with brute force with people. Yeah, because there are enough people that are, that are there, and they actually send them with a laptop and got that going. However, this was not an easy task for us. It was a learning that we had from our journey over the past 2-3 years to get to that stage when we were able to deliver that successfully on June 14th of 2023. Now this is where we called success, and we did not have that many sleepless nights because we addressed a lot of the automation aspect, but we also addressed a lot of the people aspect. And with that, let me just focus on what are the opportunities that we need to clinically focus on to make sure that OpenRAN journey is successful. Standardization, standardization, standardization. That's going to be your key. You have to make sure that number of SKUs that you have are limited, and it's controlled. Because the problem starts from the time the equipment leaves the warehouse. You have to make sure, because if you don't have the equipment inventory correct, your automation will not work. That is such a key for us, and this was a learning that we got from 20%, because we will run the automation and we'll all of a sudden see that the serial numbers are not matching. Now, of course, you can imagine that everything else is fine, but as we are doing the automation, the serial number is not right, and we don't want to turn that on because we have to make sure that we have the correct inventory. Again, more so for us, but also from reporting standpoint aspect as well. Provisioning, when we started journey with 20%, we did part of it automated, part of it with people making decisions on what goes first, second, third, and fourth, because that's how we in telcos we're used to. We're so used to rolling it market by market by market. Automation really doesn't work like that. Automation, you could really control it, but what you really want to make sure is that automation is actually done when the site is ready for deployment, which simply means that you have all the right attributes available for that site. And that's where we wanted to make sure that data was meant to be checked both in the pre and at the post stage as well. So that when we say that, hey, we are ready to go out and actually do emergency test for that site, that the site was actually working and not waste truck roll, because each truck roll on average costs about $1,000. Okay. Release management was another key aspect. We were finding out, irrespective of what we will tell our partners, that we want X release in that hardware, or we want X release in that software, we will find out that was not the case. We then took control by ourselves, and that's where we assumed the prime integrator role and ensured that any release that will go into our network was controlled by us, even from day one standpoint. And also, it was not that the release was what was controlled by us, but we want to make sure it's tested. So testing was another key aspect that we have to do, because we cannot put a software which is not ready for prime time, because resiliency, we have commitment to our end subscribers and to the US government as well. Security, as I mentioned about provisioning, we started with zero trust security in mind. Hence, anything that we will send to the site, there was zero software on it. And if there was anything that was on it, we'll wipe it up and we'll go out and start from the right firmware, as I said, right OS, and then right up application on top. Hence, we ensured that as we are setting this up, security is addressed, but also anything that was going to the site, there was security testing of that in our labs, both from hardware and software aspect before it was rolled out. In addition, we asked all our partners to make sure that any software and any hardware that we have from them, we have a complete H-bomb and S-bomb. This was the first time in the industry we were in a position to really ask for that. This is where, with ORAN adoption, it's the first time where we as MNOs are in control of the technology stack. That has never happened before. And this is where we don't have to rely on our OEMs to say like, hey, when you adopt that next chipset that's coming, or the new security technology that's coming, let us know when you're ready. When it's available in the market, we can go out and actually plug that into our ecosystem. So that's the benefit that we're getting with OpenRAN. Lastly, performance. Just like if you deploy any network, and by the way, I've deployed 3G networks, 4G, and now I'm deploying 5G network. I didn't have a luxury of deploying 2G, thankfully. But any network that you deploy, first time, LTE, when it came out, it took about 4 years to mature. We're the first one to deploy voice over knee radio, which is simply voice for 5G. And we're the first one to deploy nationwide, and at this point, we had a challenge of maturing that from performance standpoint. Not that out of the box, it actually worked like a charm. We had to really work on it, make sure that we put that not only in a lab, because lab, you can do some level of negative testing, but it does not reflect the true geographies, the true topography of of a location. So we had to put it into the markets, and not just one market. We had to put it into a few markets. We literally had invested more than hundreds of millions of dollars just to go and actually get the performance to the level where it's acceptable to the end customer. And in terms of resilience as well, we had to do more negative testing in the live ecosystem as well, because as I showed the previous chart where we have distributed ecosystem, that distributed ecosystem come with the point of failures as well. So we had to make sure that we ensure resilience as we do the commercial rollout. I also want to now talk about ORCID. So our commitment for ORCID, that stands for OpenRAN Center for Integration and Deployment. This was an NTA-run project where we got $50 million from NTIA to build an OpenRAN ecosystem for testing for testing operational readiness. There are enough OTICs that are available that will go out and actually test the deployment or the development phase, but there was no ecosystem that's available to test operational readiness. That's what we were able to deliver with ORCID. And this is where, as we got $50 million grant from US government, EchoStar/Boost Mobile committed $25 million towards this as well. So total of $75 million is going towards this project, and it's a 5-year project. We just, over the last couple of weeks, we did the formal inauguration of that. And we're getting a lot of interest both from US and international, our friendly countries as well, to leverage ORCID setup. And in ORCID, what we have is we built a portal, and this is a portal where anybody across the globe can go in and register. So it's orcid.us, orcid.us. You just log in there. You can create a profile there, and you can then go ahead and create a project to test your product. If you believe that it's at TRL 7 and above, you can go ahead and submit that project for us to do the validation within ORCID Lab. I have in ORCID Lab, and this is in Cheyenne, Wyoming. If you have never been there, very in the city. So, and we have 4 sites. We have, where it's 6 RUs, individual DUs, and I'm simulating both CRAN and DRAN there. I have that setup available with complete core. I can do simulation, but I have 30 plus actual network functions in core available for ORCID. This is the key differentiator for us, and this is a learning from us as well, because when somebody will raise their hand and say that, hey, they have an ORAN product and it has an OTIC badge, when we will take it in our ecosystem and plug it into our core, it will not work. Or some things will not work properly. So, or even regulatory functions were not working properly, and we cannot roll things out if it's not supporting regulatory. So this is a learning that we had, and that's what we want to make sure is that everybody who is looking at adopting ORAN, they have an ecosystem where they can test operational readiness. So actual core, actual CUDU, actual CSR, actual use. That's what I have in the lab. I also have committed 4 field sites, and this is what we in EchoStar are committing towards OpenRAN, that we will deliver a field sites where we can actually take an OpenRAN product that we are testing in the lab. Once it meets the criteria for doing the performance test, we will take it into the field and do the drive test. So this is something that we will be able to do, and this is supported by our partners. So this is not just EchoStar making a commitment. We have partners like Mavenir, Fujitsu, and VMware committing towards this initiative as well. And we have a whole bunch of technology partners as well which are supporting, so including AWS, Dell, Viavi, and Keysight as part of our technology partners. And of course, these technology partners are going to extend over the period of next few years, because we're starting off right now with doing RU testing, DU testing, and of course DU hardware testing, DU CU testing, also SMO testing. So things like real-time brick, non-real-time brick, we will have capability to do that testing over here as well. So if you really want to see if there is something that you wanted to test in ORCID, when you go in and log in there, you will be able to see what is the entrance criteria for it. Because what we don't want to do is block a test line for somebody who's not ready. Hence, we want to make sure that the early legwork for development is done. People are coming into ORCID when they're ready for operational readiness, and they want to see real live data as to how their product performs when it's ready for operations. Okay. Any questions?
So the 4 labs you mentioned, where are these locations for these labs?
Cheyenne, Wyoming. The only thing as well is that when you want to leverage this setup, you don't have to be in Cheyenne, Wyoming. We'll do all the testing for you. Because this setup is going to simulate what you when you send your product to the end customer. So it's almost like when you're sending to ORCID, you're sending to an end customer. You send your product along with the user manual, all the specification, and we read that and we go out and do the deployment for you. I have experts who have been in the industry for decades, and they will be the one who will really install it and then do the testing as well. Go ahead, Paul.
So when you look at RAN solutions on the market, CUD specifically, what's the top of your wish list as an operator? Where are the missing pieces, or where is the flexibility that you need and you don't see?
So when we started our journey, there were not many players who were OpenRAN, who were adopting OpenRAN. Of course, now things have changed. There are many people who are working towards it or who are committing to work towards it. So our journey started with where we were trying to work with some of the partners who were doing it for the first time. So the maturity was not there. Then we had somebody else who were really mature, but not flexible. So they said they wanted to OpenRAN, but they were not flexible and they were not open. And then they started their journey where it was just virtualized and not containerized. For OpenRAN, for us, as I said, we want OpenRAN, but we also want cloud native. So it has to be containerized for us to really take the benefit of that. And so the future ones which are coming into it, what I'm looking for is to make sure that, of course, they're complying to the latest OpenRAN standards. So I think ORAN 8 and ORAN 10 is out already. So we want a compliance with that, but also make sure that your products are cloud native. Sorry.
Very good talk. Thanks for that. More questions. So yesterday we spoke about ORAN end-to-end testing and the DFG, and then that those test cases are kind of a good baseline, but certainly not enough for operators. So is that something that you also use as a baseline and go beyond that and kind of put that like the testing that you wish for there, or what's your what's the strategy there? How do we extend that so you get that carrier grade, whatever that means for boost?
So, and by the way, very good point. One of the lessons learned as well was when we deployed that when people will raise their hand and say that they're OpenRAN compliant, we just see the badge and not see the actual testing until unless we ask for that data. Or they would say, hey, we passed this test without the data. So it was just like pass fail. We don't care for that. We want actual results. And to your point, as we build ORCID, that's the learning that we had, where when we will submit the report back, not only will share that that how you perform, but we'll share the data with you as well. And if at any point where where there is a failure or you're out of that limit, we'll share that aspect as well. As we are building this, and this is a key learning for us, along with our partners, we realize that the testing that is there, it's not complete. There are gaps that are there. And what we want to make sure is, of course, there is certain IPR that we have from automation, because in ORCID, what we have done is we are trying to run this as a factory. So from the portal, there's a reason that we have a portal. From the portal, the workflow starts. It will go out and do the validation. Of course, we have experts in the back end to test the validation of the specification that will be shared. But then we would also go out and do the workflow for it to push into our test setups and run the test, collect the logs, build the report. All of that is automated. However, the test cases that we have, we want to come up with a framework where we start sharing that at least with Valor. That's who we are working very closely with right now. And as a core gets to the point where they're ready to do the sharing, we want to make sure that we share that with them as well. So at least the test cases and the test setups are standardized, because that's one of the key challenges that's there with the OpenRAN and with the OTICs that are there across the globe. So, please.
Yeah, so in terms of the automation, what is, from a diagnostic perspective, so could that be kind of built in analytics for diagnostics? So in other words, if you start running our app, you get 230 improvements, what does that look like? Is that automated too, or do you have to, at what point do you break it?
So what we have is we use a lot of testing tools. We do have ability to see how good the RF propagation is. Of course, then when we have test tools, not just for labs, but also for the field, where we can go out and gather the data and see how good the RF propagation is, and also the performance of the actual UEs in the real live ecosystem as well. Now, how much of automation is there? I don't think we're at that level yet. That's a journey we got to take, and we got to take it together where we want to learn from the industry as well. I think the industry is not mature yet. There's certain things we could do from the workflow, but can we do end-to-end test analysis and then say like, hey, 3GPP spec states this limit and you are within this? We're not there right now. Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
When you deploy ORAN, was that on a standalone or non-standalone 5G? And my second question is, for your lab, do you have the infrastructure to test private 5G as well?
This setup is 5G standalone, both for how we deployed Boost Mobile and also ORCID. As I started my conversation, we decided that we want to start with the latest technology that's available, so it's 5G only. My core is 5G as well, and that's the reason we are able to get the benefit out of the entire 5G, where a lot of operators are moving towards it as of now. We are already there. That's the reason we're the first one with cloud native 5G core. I mean, again, I know this is a RAN discussion, but we are the first one to have cloud native 5G core. Second, your question on private 5G, that's in our roadmap. We're not there today for private 5G, but we want to get there. And our intent and our commitment to NTIA and to the OpenRAN community is, as we adopt OpenRAN technology in Boost Mobile Stack, we'll make sure that that is available in ORCID as well. What we wanted to do is to give you a baseline. So let's say if you have a private 5G product, we will compare that against our stack and tell you how good that is. So
you mentioned some vendors here, OEMs here. Is this test bed open to other vendors? Can they bring their own software and reuse it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as I said, this is meant for OEMs and for MNOs, both US and friendly nations across the globe. If you're ready for your product, you believe it's operational ready at TRL 7 and above, you can send that to us for us to test against our stack.
And for here you are using the actual core or the simulator devices?
Actual core, 30 plus network functions. And it's all in AWS.
And for the field test, also you guys are using for the boost core, right?
Absolutely. I have of course, MNOs do this quite widely as well. I have few cores available. Again, with AWS, I have ability to spin up and spin down as well, right? So, okay, Paul.
So Tom shared the vision and the roadmap for Kudu leading up to 2030 this morning. As you look towards 6G, what do you as an operator look for from 6G, or how do you view the evolution of 5G to 6G?
So I will start with my first slide that I had in terms of what we did with building our network, where we adopted OpenRAN and where we adopted cloud native. And then the last one was 5G. There was the reason why we did that in that order. What we were trying to say is the way that we have built our network, we're ready for any Gs that comes down the road. We want to make sure we adopt the modularity. What we are looking for from 6G, it's not, everybody looks at speed. I think that's probably given. It's like table stakes. What I'm really keen on is sensing. That's where I believe that the next generation of use cases will come in because of sensing. I'm thinking more so from drones and also more so from automated vehicles, also warehouses. Again, there are tons of use cases that I believe will be enabled by 6G, not just because of speed, but also the sensing technologies that are coming in. Of course, if you take a look at 6G and look at what being advocated for 3GPP as well as interoperability, we're already there. So whether it's now 5G and now 6G comes in, unless I go out and actually say that I need to go ahead and add additional spectrum because of the new spectrum that Tom talked about, I pretty much just have to change the software and maybe add a few cores into my DU, and that's about it, and I'm ready for 6G. So that's the power that we have right now, with us adopting OpenRAN, and we look forward for that for, let's say to 7G. Again, the telco hardware, we have a shelf life of about 10 plus years, so. Okay.
How does ORCID stack up against OT?
Very good question. OTIC pretty much helps you at your development stage, where you go out and say that I need to test X, Y, Z function. It's not end-to-end ecosystem, which is not simulated. In ORCID, I have actual ecosystem from where it's not a simulated core, it's an actual core. Where some of the functions might be, again, different OTICs are at different level. They might go ahead and actually say that they will be able to do end-to-end, but some of the functions will be simulated. I will give you a complete actual ecosystem, both in lab and in the field. None of the OTICs that are there, they have a field ecosystems. And one of the key differentiation as well is that I will give you a stack to compare against, which is Boost Mobile Tech Stack to compare against your product.
How do you collaborate with other FDI funded activities like VREs, Valor, or Accord? How do you collaborate? Do you partner, collaborate with them, and yes, how?
So Valor and Accord will look at solutions at TRL 3 and all the way up to TRL 7. When it comes above TRL 7, it will come into Orchid. And we are partnering with Valor right now more aggressively than Accord in terms of that any solution that comes in, the next path for that solution is Orchid. Okay, so.
If you recall now, next step communications, everything there was provided by Motorola, the UEs, the gas station, the code, so that everything was provided. So from operator perspective, what do you see for the OpenRAN as the big motivator, the big driver? This is one question. The other question I have is that, do you think that for OpenRAN, the use cases will remain the same? So I'm referring to the 5G triangle, the massive machine communication, the URCC, and the machine type communication. So do you think the use cases will still remain the same for all?
So, by the way, when it comes to the use cases, whether it's traditional OEM or an ORAN solution, the use cases are same because both are adopting 3GPP specs. So if they are complying to, so the solutions that we have, I mean, we're complying to those release 15, release 16, they don't change. It's the exact same use cases. The reason for us to adopt OpenRAN is the flexibility and for MNOs like us to take control of our technology future. As I was mentioning, when you stick with one OEM, let's say Motorola, their entire stack is run by them. That's one approach, and by the way, nothing wrong with that. It's like one neck to choke. Anything goes wrong, you go to them. But then you are also dependent on them for every single thing. And what they are giving you is they're giving you a black box, and it's like, let me manage technology, you go sell. What we're now doing is we're shifting gears. We're saying not only we want to sell, but we also want to go ahead and be in control of our technology future. That's what OpenRAN brings to us. Go ahead, Paul.
So the test cases both for Valor Lab to improve TRL 7 network readiness and the test cases for Orchid, will they be published? Will they be publicly available?
Test cases will not be. And also we will not be publishing the reports until unless the participant signs off on it. So privacy is such a key for us. We want to make sure that if somebody wants to go ahead and publish on Orchid page, so any activities that we will do, we'll publish them only after the consent of the participant.
But in terms of the tests that will be run themselves, can a participant view the set of tests that will be run in advance of interacting with the test center?
The reason we will not be publishing them because I think OTICs are much more suited to publish those, and this is a discussion we're also having with likes of TIP and ORAN Alliance, that they should be the one who should be going ahead and publishing those. We are not the authority on that front. That's the reason we'll contribute, but we're not authority to publish them. So.
Thank you again.
Thank you.